Hello again. Welcome to week 10, round 2. I'm sorry that you have to listen to so much of me this week, but I hope this is useful. I think there's a lot to wrap our heads around when it comes to this topic, and I hope what follows will be useful in terms of preparing your second paper. As you know, you should be selecting an advertisement to analyze in the style and methodology that Roland Barthes uses in Rhetoric of the Image. I'm going to give you 2 examples here, both of which are pulled from very recent print publications. The first is from New York Magazine. I think it was back in February or so. And the second is from the New Yorker around the same time. You'll see that they're not great reproductions. I apologize for that. If that's what you end up using, that's totally fine and great. That's what you should be doing for this one. Also note that when it comes to this assignment, the best thing to do is to pick a magazine and to flip through it, find an advertisement. I know that there's versions of this essay posted online. I've seen them all. I do not want to see them again. You don't have to really research this, right? You don't have to go out seeking the best examples of the advertisement. In fact, do not do that. I don't want to see that. What I want to see is you taking the concepts that Roland Barthes puts forward and utilizing them on your own, deconstructing an advertisement, understanding the elements of the image, and employing this technique, mobilizing it, making it your own so that you can analyze an image and to do it effectively. If you don't have a magazine at home, maybe you need to make a doctor's appointment this week. They always have some in the waiting room. Maybe you're going to a grandparent's house or an aunt or an uncle, somebody else who might have one. Maybe just accept the daily post or daily news from the vendors on the subway when they're handing them out at some point during the week. I think it really does work best to begin with a print advertisement and to focus on that single page, to dwell on it, to spend some time thinking about it, analyzing it, understanding what the elements are. That's what I'll be doing right here. Again, these are very fresh ads for me, so I'm still kind of brainstorming what's there. So if I trip over words, if I get stuck, I have a couple of notes, but if it gets a little frozen at moments, if I'm stuttering over my words, please excuse me. I am trying to sort of analyze these in real time. The first one that I'll be addressing, again, from New York Magazine, it's clearly an ad for Williams Lumber and Home Centers. We have a few messages here, a few linguistic messages focused on the bottom, and an image at the top. And again, your advertisement is best if it uses a single photographic image. Sometimes alterations can be interesting because then you sort of have questions about the technique and the sort of Photoshopness versus like the still life quality. If you get into a whole range of different images, then it can be problematic to sort of, it becomes very challenging to address all of them. And again, drawings, illustrations, there's not many illustrated ads out there, but you end up sort of lacking that non-coded iconic message if it's not photographic. So this is by no means an exceptional advertisement. I think it's a pretty boring advertisement. I don't think it's really fascinating on its own. No offense to the designer or the design team that created this, but I don't think it's at all remarkable. But that's exactly why I think it's useful to consider in this context. What are we looking at? I'll start at the beginning and I'll give you some of my basic assessment, which is the same as the non-coded iconic message. We see here an interior space, wood walls, a big double window on those wood walls. We can see outside of the windows to a snowy landscape. We see a little bit of the awning from what appears to be a sort of patio or an outdoor space on the other side of the window. Below the window, we see what looks like a breakfast nook or a small kitchen table, flanked by 2 chairs. There's a coffee maker, creamer, 2 mugs, and it looks like a sugar container laid out on the table. There's trees in the forest, maybe a shadow on the wall, but for the most part, that sort of describes what we're looking at in the image. Below the image, we see the words windows and doors built for how you live. And there's also this word Marvin that's on top of the image, and then some information about the store. I'll go back to the linguistic message because I'm just going to sort of follow Roland Barthes' order here. If you want to tackle the linguistic message first when it comes to your paper, that's totally fine. I'm going to sort of adhere to his order as best I can. And to that effect, I'll take a look at this image and try to look at some of the signs that are at play. Again, they're discontinuous, they're sort of spread around. There's probably more, but in keeping with the spirit of rhetoric of the image, I know that there must be at least 4, right? There's probably always more than that. Maybe you're having a hard time identifying 4, but I think I can easily sort of pick out at least 4 here. The first sign that I see at play, which is also one that was in rhetoric of the image, is something of domesticity, right? Of a home scene. It's very different in this one. That sort of idea of domesticity here has less to do with, I think, preparation in the kitchen. And I think it has more to do with the sort of coziness or the protection of the home. Maybe something about the warmth, the welcoming feeling of being at home. There's a little bit of a kind of like food preparation element, but I think that the domesticity of this scene has more to do with warmth and protection. I think that the color also creates, just as we saw kind of, the color created Italianicity for Roland Barthes, I think in this image, color also speaks to warmth, to heat, to an interior space. We see this sort of warm tones in the chairs and in the wood. And that points to both the sort of coziness of the home and also the kind of naturalness of the wood. So I think that sort of overall color palette is another sign that we can read as the comforts of a home space. We also see these objects laid out as another sign. Here, it looks as if we've just walked into this room. Perhaps we've just woken up for the morning, and we see this scene prepared for us. The coffee is ready. All the sort of accessories or the condiments I need are all laid out. The objects present a sign of welcome and of home and of care. I think it's as if, again, the scene is sort of made for me as I enter into the picture. And then in terms of an approach to the photographic technique, remember Roland Barthes talks about that in terms of the still life scene. Well, this is not really that. It is sort of, but I would place it more in sort of a genre of architectural pictures or architectural photography. This is made to evoke some of the images that we might see in Architectural Digest or in the very same New York Magazine. They often do these sort of these profiles on different exceptional homes. At first glance, this calls that genre to mind, though the focus is slightly closer than it would be in any of those images. It seems to be a cropped down version of that architectural type picture. But I think that it works well as the sign, as a sort of element through which we can kind of view this image. Again, I think there are probably more signs at work here. I haven't looked outside of the window. I haven't paid much attention to the details of the furniture and so forth, but To start off, we see 4 signs that are immediately apparent from the non-coded iconic images, and that's a pretty good start. I can then relate this back to the linguistic message, right? And if I start to pick apart the linguistic message, again, for the most part, the type here, the message is fairly unexceptional, right? The piece that stands out most is windows and doors built for how you live. This word Marvin above that seems somewhat incidental and somewhat kind of an afterthought. I believe that it's there because the advertiser is required to also include the brand name of the windows that are pictured. So that Marvin bit is, in my mind, fully denotational. I don't think there's a connotation to that which really expands our reading of this image. I think that it's fully denotational. It's telling us what brand these windows are, and it's there by necessity more than any kind of message. Maybe it's one element that the advertiser lost control of or just wasn't quite sure where to place. But I think that that's purely denotational. I think that the text below windows and doors built for how you live is also mostly denotational. Of course, the name of the store is important, Williams Lumber and Home Centers. But it appears to strictly delineate the name of the company from which you should order this product, save for one little detail where the word home is underlined, right? So rather than sort of expanding on that, just that simple use of an underline, I think changes our reading of the linguistic message. It's perhaps a non-linguistic graphic element, but it's certainly added for emphasis. It's certainly added to clarify the fact that this store will make for you a nice home rather than provide for you a pile of lumber, right? Of course, the home is always the end result of the lumber, and that little bit of emphasis really sort of speaks to the rhetorical devices at play, I think. And then we have some locations for the store, the website, and the phone number. Again, all of which appear completely denotational. I do not think there's any connotations to those elements. They're just there by necessity. However, this bit, windows and doors built for how you live, is a very simple statement, but it also seems to say something about the message here. There's, I believe, a certain connotational, first there is a denotational aspect, right? We're looking at the window. We know from this little bit of text that the window is the point of focus for this image. A different tagline might sort of change our interpretation. If it said something about the chairs or about tree pruning, maybe we would read the picture differently. But this windows and doors built for how you live tells us immediately that we are considering the windows pictured, that this is the object for sale in this picture that we might be interested in buying. But the fact that they are built for how you live is absolutely connotational, because we see that whoever is living in this house, presumably me, because it's from this perspective as if I'm walking into this room, appreciates certain things and has made certain lifestyle decisions, right? How you live, according to the model presented by Williams Lumber, is probably not in the Bronx or in Brooklyn or anywhere else in the 5 boroughs, right? This is suggesting that we may live in a rural setting, right? It also suggests that we may live according to certain design standards that we see on the peripheries of the image, right? Everything inside this home suggests something about our lifestyle, the furniture that we own, and our sort of normal daily habits. So this little simple message, windows and doors built for how you live, I think is actually very aspirational, and that's the connotation to it. It's not necessarily how you really live right now, but it's how you would like to live and how you imagine yourself living. And this is the connotation, is that if you have the windows pictured, then you may be living in a different kind of way. You might improve your lifestyle by having those windows. And that leads to, and actually, and I think that this is fully the use of anchorage. I don't think there's really any relay at play here. I think this is anchoring. It says windows and doors. Though we don't have a door, we can immediately, we're immediately attached to the fact that we're looking at windows. This bit of text is anchorage pure and simple. Sure, there's an element of, okay, how we live, but ultimately this is telling us that the windows are the object for consideration, and the remainder of the scene is how we wish to live. It's anchoring us in this situation and directing us towards the store in which we will buy the windows, which will change the way we live. So again, I think it's nothing but anchorage. There's really not much relay happening here, if any. And all of that, again, that idea, the connotation of that sentence brings us to the coded iconic messages at work here. And again, that coded iconic message begins with the idea that these windows will offer us the lifestyle that we demand, or that we would like to, that we aspire to. That lifestyle is actually depicted in pretty great detail throughout the image. It goes back to that domestic scene. We want to be warm and safe from the cold. We would like to live in this cozy space that is detached from the brutal cold winter outside. However, we would like to live on the edge of this sort of rural environment, where outside of our window, we have this untold wilderness. We have this beautiful scenery. Again, this is not sort of looking at it out at the apartment building next door. This is an idyllic, natural scene, which is all the beauty of the natural world, which is a whole sort of, it's a getaway, a retreat from the city. Yet we have the possibility, when away, to live with all the comforts and warmth that we would ever expect from any kind of home. We're getting the best of both worlds. And the windows in the image are the sort of, are the thing that provide both, right? We have this beautiful modern space inside, and then we have this untamed wilderness on the outside. We're essentially having our cake and eating it too, right? And again, on the inside, not only do we have this sort of warmth, this coziness, we also have a sort of modern lifestyle. We're not roughing it here, right? This is not sort of the inside of a log cabin with rough-hewn wood and, you know, our shotguns mounted on the wall or something, right? This is a not decadent type of siding, type of wall paneling, but a clean, modern, certainly not inexpensive interior space to occupy. We have these modern chairs that are derivative of some of the kind of like Bauhaus styles that we saw earlier in the semester. And those modern chairs, although they may not really be an Eames chair or a Marcel Breuer chair, they're certainly knockoffs of those, and they're meant to sort of evoke this this knowledge of the progressive looking, the progressive modern designs associated with these avant-garde movements. Similarly, a very simple table, very simple, clean, modern dishes around this table. We can see that we have all the kind of amenities that we'd expect from any kind of, not necessarily luxurious, but from a well-equipped modern household, and we can have it all right on the edge of the forest. We should also note that this scene comes with 2 coffee mugs, 2 chairs. So if I'm walking into this scene, someone is greeting me. Someone has prepared this coffee for me. We're going to sit down, relax, and enjoy this coffee, which, to begin with, this French press is not the kind of like coffee maker where you throw it in and walk away and get ready for work and then take your coffee to go. This is a coffee maker where one must sit and take their time to make the coffee. We'll presumably sit down with our cups and saucers and have this breakfast, this sort of this conversation. It's a certain form of luxury with the time, right? And usually in the morning, you're waking up to this. So it's a completely sort of generic way to say that I have woken up in this household to a loved one who has prepared coffee for me, created this perfectly warm, comfortable space, and I can have everything I've ever imagined while staring out, looking at this beautiful landscape and sitting there being loved in the morning. All of this will come to me from having these windows, right? It starts to sound a little bit absurd, but this is really the kind of euphoric value that Roland Barthes talking about. This is really sort of what goes into the idea behind every advertisement, behind selling you on all of these concepts. So whatever my icity here is, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's sort of modernicity, maybe it's just domesticity. It's one of those things, but we see this kind of inviting scene. It's a perfect world, it's a perfect morning. And it's also morning, so it's a brand new day in front of me. I've got the rest of my life to look outward and to enjoy all the wonders of nature, and then come back inside to be loved. All thank you to these windows. But so this is where the analysis can go. I think I've easily just written 2 to 3 pages on this one, and I think there are still more sort of discontinuous signs that I could pick apart, and still more elements to read into the convenience and the lifestyle that's promised here. But again, I want to give you a second example. I actually mentioned one where I was going to talk about science-icity. I nixed that one. I chose a different one instead. So sorry if you got excited for that in the previous lecture, but here's another one that's very different. And I think it actually like pretty well done advertisement. Again, this one is from the New Yorker magazine. And I think this one is also really interesting in terms of the elements that we can sort of pick apart from it. So here goes example number 2. And I'll start again with a description of what I see in this advertisement, right? We have bubbles. We have some sort of foamy substance which has been flung up into the air. We have a woman within that sort of mass of bubbles of foam carrying a purse. We have some kind of a sign behind her, and the whole scene seems to be in motion. The woman is wearing white. She's set against a heavy blue sky, and there's a certain kind of expression on her face that at very least implies some sort of dynamism, some kind of motion, if nothing else. And then we have this sort of rich blue sky behind all of it. The linguistic messages are minimal. We have Hermes Paris in the top corner, lighthearted, sort of center left, and then very small on the bottom, the words Hermes.com. And I'm sorry if you see these lines on the right side, that's just because the magazine was wrinkled. So I apologize for that. Again, this is just sort of from a magazine that I flipped through, and that's the idea. So once again, I will take that assessment and I'll go back using those kind of non-coded signs that are at play. I think we can look at or look at the sort of overall non-coded message of woman against the blue sky. We can then go back and look at some of the signs that are at play in the image. The first one that I would recognize would be something along the lines of activity, motion, maybe exuberance, right? This is, again, a dynamic scene. And there's a certain kind of dynamism to it, some kind of action at work. I'm also reading some kind of sign of cleanliness, right? These bubbles seem to be soap suds. The woman's wearing a white outfit and there's a white sign. It may be sort of controversial, I don't know, but to see this kind of this cleanliness, it also implies a certain kind of purity from dirt, right? A sort of this space that seems to be very free from any kind of debris or grime or anything like that. So I think cleanliness is one of the signs at work here. I also read one of the signs as being something along the lines of defiance. We see that with this sign very low, it seems as if the woman might be on a roof or something, right? Someplace where maybe she shouldn't be, right? And she seems to be sort of kicking up these bubbles. I'm not sure what she is kind of lashing out against, but there does seem to be almost this kind of breaking of the rules that comes along with the exuberance that we see from the activity. Looking at the entire framing of the picture, I think we also have the sign of an editorial image, right? We see this type of scene. It's certainly not a still life. It's not a portrait. It sort of plays off of traditional reportage or documentary type images. Certainly I could think of some kind of photographers, Henri Cartier-Bresson or Jacques Lartigue are some of the big names in this style of shooting, but it's also become extremely common in what we call an editorial shoot, right? Images that are sort of posed in the real world with some kind of dynamic to them, some sorts of interaction that are neither portraits nor really action shots. So I think that that's another sign here. There's probably more of them. I think that we could look at something with the sign in the background and with the purse, and we could start to kind of identify more discontinuous signs. But again, at 4 is a pretty good number. That's the bar that Roland Barthes set. So I'm going to stay with that. And so the activity, the cleanliness, the defiance, the editorial quality, these are all sorts of discontinuous signs that are at play here. So then we can look at the linguistic message. Again, it's very minimal in this picture. We have in that top right corner the words Hermes Paris accompanied by the logo. This is most certainly anchorage. We are told through this text that we are looking at products manufactured and or sold by Hermes Paris. We would assume that this is the outfit that the woman is wearing and the purse in her hands. If I had any question about what this scene was intended to mean, I'm immediately roped back in, returned to this safe place by the fact that this is an advertisement for Hermes, and now I know that I should be looking at the outfit and the purse. This completely orients my understanding of the image. It's reinforced by that small word Hermes.com in the lower corner. And should I have any other questions regarding Hermes, sure, it sends me outside of the image, but it tells me that I can find all of the details I would like to know at Hermes.com. The word lighthearted plays a slightly different role. I look at this and I wonder, is this some sort of, is this relay? Right? Is this what's happening here? Is this sending me outside of the image, wondering what exactly is lighthearted? What is she doing? What's this woman, this model, up to? Is there something that I don't know about? Is this some sort of fun new event that everyone's doing, or the latest craze? I don't know. What exactly is lighthearted about this? And I start to think that this may be relay. This may be something that's taking me outside of the image. But I think that it is ultimately a form of anchorage. It's telling me that the products I see here and the interaction that a model or an individual will have with the products is ultimately lighthearted. I might worry looking at this image that the woman's being assaulted by some sort of weird foam gun that shoots bubbles at her, and she's, worried about it, that she's scared. I might wonder if she's going to fall off of this roof or whatever it is and sink to, some kind of dismal end. I don't know, but all of those worries are soothed, and they're all gone as soon as I realize that this image is lighthearted. She's not scared for her life. She's having fun, and she's having fun because she's interacting with the products created by Hermes Paris. So that lighthearted, I think, is ultimately anchorage. Although it's a little bit abstract, I think it's telling me that Hermes will facilitate this sort of reckless behavior, which is ultimately lighthearted and fun, because I can sort of be making my way through life with ease if I'm using the products from Hermes Paris, right? And again, we can look at this sort of non-coded iconic message here. And once again, we have woman with purse, bubbles on a roof, on a sort of on this kind of indeterminate space in front of a sign and a blue sky. Oh, and actually before, so that's some of the non-coded, it's a kind of reiteration of that. Before I get to the coded iconic message, I should also note that there is one more linguistic message, which is appearing en abim within the image, that I failed to mention here. We have this word, we have the letter S, and then this word that appears to be seller, something like that. We can't quite make it out. There's very little consequence to this linguistic message, I believe. I don't think it's really adding a whole lot more. It's not really telling us much more of what we need to understand. But its location does seem to imply to me that this is on some kind of a rooftop or something. You rarely see these signs like so close to the ground, right? Mostly this kind of advertising messages would be up higher. So that linguistic message does give me some kind of orientation to the space, albeit an imperfect one, but it's something that we should note. It's another element of a linguistic message, even if it doesn't add a whole lot to the picture. Anyhow, so back to the coded iconic message. What exactly is this image telling me? What is the rhetoric here? Well, thinking back on all the discontinuous signs and the way that this sort of non-coded message presents them, I think the first major point that it's telling me is that Hermes will liberate me, should I choose to purchase the products, that there will be freedom from owning Hermes outfits or handbags, that there will be this sort of, I'll suddenly have this ability to run free and be consequence free, right? There will be, I can run across the rooftops in this sort of great kind of mist of bubbles and in these clouds of joy, and there will be no repercussions and nothing for me to worry about. There's also something in these kind of elements where there's a luxury to that freedom. There's a luxury in running wild, but that luxury is not ostentatious in ways that some forms of luxury could be. It's not a bright gold bag. It doesn't advertise in huge logos and letters that it's Hermes. It's understated. It's something that's very simple. Perhaps we wouldn't look twice, yet it is a sort of understated luxury. It is a sort of a signifier of wealth and prestige without being completely in your face about it. And despite the fact that we are, carrying this purse that costs thousands of dollars, we will not be burdened by the luxury of that. It's not so precious that we must be careful with our every move whenever we carry the purse or we wear the outfit. The purse can be thrown around recklessly. We can run through this sort of, we can throw caution to the wind. We can run through this mess of bubbles when we're wearing the outfit, and we'll surely come out squeaky clean on the other side. Everything is sort of, everything will be faultless even after, and it'll still be pristine even after we make our way through whatever kind of rambunctious jaunt we're going to go on with this, with our new outfit and purse. So, again, we're getting to this point where it's like, wow, this is really starting to be a lot, but I really think that this is the message here. I really think that this is part of what the advertiser is telling us. This is all reading it from, a first person, as if I would be the one to be purchasing the product. We can also certainly look, I think, especially when it comes to fashion accessories or products, we also wonder about the sort of relationships of the purchasers. I know reading this that, as a cisgendered male, I'm probably not going to be purchasing this purse or this, the outfit for myself, right? I mean, realistically, I'm not buying any of this stuff because I don't have the money for it. But as the sort of target of the advertisement, there's really a twofold message. One directed towards the individual who might be buying these products, and one directed towards individuals who may be buying the product for someone else, right? And I can read all of the same kind of ecstasy, all the same kind of jubilance and recklessness as something that would be available to my significant other should they have these products, right? It may sort of allow me a certain kind of power by releasing that energy within another, within my partner, should they want to have these products, right? And that's a whole other level to the interpretation and to the connotations that might exist for certain viewers. But in any case, I think there's one more element that's really critical that I think must be addressed with this one, and that's the upward angle and the blue sky above these sort of foam clouds. We're looking up on this scene. We're looking up towards the heavens. There's something heavenly about this scene. There's something otherworldly. The woman running through these suds is literally above us and living a life that is sort of higher than ours. There's something that I would go so far as to say is transcendent in this image. She floats above the clouds and is in this ideal state that is untouchable to us earthlings who do not have the Hermes handbag and outfit. And there's something about this scene that takes it out of this context of a particular culture. It's a way to transcend all cultures. It's not about sort of the Italianness or even the Frenchness. This is a French brand that says Hermes Paris. It's about flying high above any particular culture. It seems to strive towards a universality associated with that. There's probably a problem thinking that the universality is applied to a white woman. We could analyze the kind of cultural dimension to that, and I don't think it's a perfect data, and I think that maybe it is somehow kind of biased, but I do think it's sort of striving towards this universal transcendence, the idea that you will be literally in the clouds should you acquire the accessories from Hermes. So those are some of the ways to read it. Again, I think I've given you a solid 2 to 3 pages on this one as well. Again, and once again, you should go out and find advertisements. It can be for luxury products, or it can be for simple home goods. It can be food products, doesn't matter what. The idea is that we can apply this type of thinking to any kind of advertisement. It should be a photographic ad. and it should be a single page. You can do a 2-page spread, but try to avoid multiple images. That can be confusing. There's more instructions posted. I hope this is helpful. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, thanks.